Hi, this is Sandy Sims from SDS Digital and the Accord Sequarallel. This demo/tutorial will simply cover the Sequarallel song loops record method. Before doing any recording, things like CV mode to set which jack's output what MIDI channel can be set. I want gate and CV jack row 3 to output from channel 3. The two rows above will output from the default channel 1. Song loops recording differs from layer or tracks recording in that any length of MIDI sequencing can be recorded, and the recording can be broken up into sequential loops, which can then be used in any order in the playlist, with various MIDI song effects applied, of course. With the MIDI input patched, playing into the Sequarallel will audition how it will sound after recording. So let's do that first. I have FL Studio patched to the MIDI input jack to make the recording. This sequence has been made with the idea that sections will be split into loops. Because the jacks are assigned to channel 1 and channel 3, the display is showing the notes that are going to the jacks, and we can hear the VCOs corresponding to those. Some of the higher notes are ending up on jack row 2 because the lower rhythm notes on the same channel beat them to the jack row 1, and this CV mode order is in stack mode. I have these two formula controllers sending changes to a couple of cut filters on channel 2 and 3. These were originally smooth LFOs but took up a lot of MIDI bandwidth. Here's what MIDI aux showed with LFOs, then with stepped LFOs, much less data. With just notes getting quantized, it's not an issue. Quantization points are accurate, but throw in hundreds of CC messages shown in dark blue, and the quantization points stuff the MIDI bandwidth, causing a delay. Keep this in mind if you plan to do any quantizing of loops. To arm for a song loops record, just press both P and S buttons at the same time. Start the source sequence from the beginning, and recording will begin. I've placed 4 loop markers beforehand. These are note 121 and can be on any channel, but I chose channel 10 as there's never a drum that high. These will make a loop point at the beginning of the bar they are in. You can see there is an automation track that is fairly smooth. This is what's changing the filter on the strings channel and is slow, so it doesn't use a lot of bandwidth. Of course, if it did use lots, one could avoid adding a quantization to that particular loop. Notice channel 3 strings are coming out of jack row 3. It's only one CV, so we'll play the last note received in the chord. If CV mode order was set to arpeggiator though, all notes would be heard on this jack. I've placed a marker into FL Studio's playlist so it stops after one bar past the end. This last bar can be trimmed off after, but guarantees the last clock doesn't get chopped off, which would ruin this drum loop at the end. There, the recording is finished. Now I'll patch a modular clock source into the Sequarallel to play it. Oops, way too fast. So let's go check to see the loops have been added as intended. Here's the 4 loops as were marked by note 121s. Selecting a loop while playing will audition it. Notice this one has 6 bars. I did this on purpose to demonstrate the loop insertion feature. The first part with the lead synth from the start is only 2 bars long before the drums start, So we'd want to make that a shorter loop than 4 bars. Then the longer 4-bar loop with drums in it following. So turn on Insert Markers and click the loop where you want the new one to be. This will split the bar count between the old and new, so half of 6 is 3. Turn it back off so we can edit. Sorry about my thumb being in the way. So now the loops are 2 bars and 4 bars and 4 bars and 2 bars. The first loop sounds like this. The second like this. Now over to the playlist. The new loop needs to be inserted because loops 3 and 4 are now 4 and 5, and loop 3 won't play at all because it's not in the sequence. Simply double-click where you want to insert and select Insert. Now we can add loop 3 back into the series of loops in the playlist. This is, of course, if you just want to play through them. They can be in any order. As SongFX numbers are initially the same as the loop's numbers when recorded, there will be a repeated use of a SongFX number due to the new loop being inserted. Loop 2 has SongFX 2. Loop 3 has SongFX 3. But loop 4 also has SongFX 3, as it was loop 3 before. I like them to align, well, at first, so when reused later on for a higher loop number, just looking at the playing loop number reveals which SongFX number to use should I want to apply it elsewhere in the playlist. So now loop 4 has SongFX 4, and loop 5 has SongFX 5. New loops created after loop 5 will also align properly this way. So let's add some more loops. The new loop will use the size parameter of the last loop, so I'll set that to 4 instead of 2 bars. Let's verify it's a good loop point by auditioning. Sounds good. On to the next. Now all new loops are 4 bars. I have gone to the last 5 bars, which is good, it aligns. So setting the song end to 40 will make that 4 bars. That's a drum loop if you recall during recording. Now, in the playlist, these new loops will be tacked on to the first group of loops, also known as playlist blocks, if there's room. If not, then they'll be tacked on to following groups. Because of this, it's best to get these organized before making multiple groups and before adding too many loops that may need one inserted. So this is how the sequence was recorded, one loop point after another. Turning on the loop quick box or using the jump to quick box will change how this progresses. I'll set jump to playlist step 6, which is also loop 6 in this layout. Jump to is great for hopping around the playlist and can be remote controlled via MIDI notes from a keyboard, or a MIDI CC if you're brave. It can also be manipulated via playlist PLFX entries on another track, or just manually like this. Jump 2 basically arms the whole rows in the playlist though, so care must be taken with other tracks as they will also be armed. Jump arms the next row to play once the present loop is finished, so synchronization is always maintained. If the entire row is empty, then the next valid block in all tracks are armed, as this is seen to be a group separation. But if there's even a single block in the armed row, only that track's block is armed and the rest are left alone. When controlling a track's next blocks with PLFX, often it's better to simply use the arm function from a PLFX. So now for the fun part, adding some song effects. Double-click a song loop and select Edit to get into its song effects. One could get here from the SongFX quick box, but only the song loop that is presently playing. Let the tweaking begin. Interestingly, the sequence we recorded is in the key of D, so scaling it, which is rooted in C, requires either a different custom scale or to be transposed up 2 semitones after the scale quantization. I'll do that here. By habit, I set transpose and scale to send to both tracks and layers so they'll follow this song effects. I'll change the scale to include D, and now the transpose would need to be returned to 0. That's why it's nice to have 4 user scales per song effects. Which user scale for this song effects could be remote controlled via MIDI or CV input, or a PLFX, so there's a lot that can be done here. Anyway, I'll just scrap scale for now. Song Loop 2 could use some tweaking. I'll cut down the long notes a bit. Then in the SongFX subsequencer, re-trigger some notes if they're still on at the subsequencer step times. One-eighth is too slow, but 1/16 is good. The shorter lengths of notes dictates that the subsequencer clocking be faster, as they only re-trigger if the note is already on. SongFX subsequencer also has 4 different configurations. This can be controlled via remote, MIDI, or a PLFX in this playlist. So even if the same loop is playing, it could sound quite different when, say, a certain track's letter plays. Mirroring this to fit might be tricky. The subsequencer unmasks steps, disables mirror now so the original lead melody is still partly there. Endless possibilities, really. Now to tweak another. In loop 4, I don't want those drums, so channel 10 for this loop's song effects can be turned off. Remember that this loop could use a different song effects elsewhere in the playlist that might include the drums, so it's not permanent. And some swing. I won't explain much of what's going on here, as that's a whole other video. Once in a song effects edit, the playlist will loop on it, once it gets to the loop you're editing. This is handy as it's best to do these adjustments during play, so the results can be heard. Shortening this loop's notes is more interesting as the strings are also shortened proportionately. I'm thickening up the drums a bit by re-triggering them with the subsequencer. Let's try offsetting the subsequencer by 12 ticks. Trying to decide which loop to modify next. Normally I do a lot of playing around with SongFX, but in the interest of keeping the video short, that's the one. Let's go off on a new tangent. Again, sorry about the view of my hand. I thought this might be a better way to video the screen, but obviously not. There's loop 4 with loads of swing. So let's make a new group of blocks with loops in a different order. This will demonstrate the jump to groups mode. Jump to starting with a G means groups mode. It scans the playlist to find groups and only shows the number of groups it found in the quick box. So jump to group 2. And there it is playing group 2. I hope you found this video on Song Loops recording both enjoyable and informative. I'm Sandy Sims. Keep on patchin'.